Hello.
Hi.
I may just look like I've got up, but I haven't. I've been in work and now I'm back from work. I actually had a rough morning this morning because I couldn't find my car keys. Normally, I'm really good at not losing stuff, but this morning I could not find my car keys at all and I was bricking it. And then I ended up finding them in the bin.
Disgusting!
And then while I was driving to work, I was trying to psychoanalyze why I ended up putting them in the bin. Does that mean I don't like my car? Because that's not true, because my car's my favourite car in the world. But obviously, hopefully, it was just an accident. But I'm hoping it's not some sign that something bad's going to happen to my car. I'm really hoping that's not true. But yeah, I'm back from work now, been through the mail, and I'm here to check in about this book. I made some flapjacks
So sophisticated.
and I have my tea in my Lush Aristocats mug, gold for glamour. Yeah, and I'm also in my Lush green bougie pajamas. I love this color. It's like my favorite color, racing green. Even though I've had a really hard morning.
How hard it's been. I'm just trying to tell you how hard it's been.
Way harder than I thought.
Even though I've had a really hard morning, it's all good. Mm. Yeah, how was your morning? Graham Turk came out with Gwendoline Riley's latest novel, My Phantoms, last May. I've since read it twice.
Gosh. Gag. Wow.
The first time, just because I adore it, and then the second time, a reread to appreciate it. And that should tell you if I like it or not, because if I didn't like it much the first time round, I'm not going to reread it. So this is the sixth novel I've read of Gwendoline Riley. So I'm a mega fan of Gwendoline Riley. She's probably my favourite living writer today. And I think she needs way more recognition than she gets.
I really wish I had a megaphone right now.
She did get some shine when she got on the Women's Prize in 2017, but since then, this is the first book she's come out with. This is slim, like all her novels are. Normally, her novels are around 200 pages tops, and the same can be said for this one. So, this novel follows Bridget, who has a PhD. She has things to do, she's busy. And it follows Bridget and her mother, Helen. So, yeah, Bridget's telling the story, and she tells you about how she grew up, what her family history was kind of like. And Bridget is in her maybe early 40s and she's escaped from the north and now she's living a bougie middle class life in London. And then her mother, Helen, who's like a lost retired lady with a pretty traumatic love life. Yeah, pretty traumatic past love life. Keeps trying to worm her way back into Bridget's life. So it's about a mother daughter relationship, but it's not the kind of cringy mother daughter relationship you read about all the time where the daughter's like, oh my God, why can't my mum just accept me? Or, oh my God, our generations are so different. Like, how can this mother from, the 60s, how could she ever understand her daughter from the 90s? It's not like that.
Oh, no, honey, no.
It's about how they try to forge their emotional connections all the time. It says it's mainly about Helen and Helen's life, but it's really all about how Bridget has tried to shuck off this old life of hers, but how it keeps coming back. And there are parts where Helen, the mother, just rocks up outside Bridget's flat with her husband, and her husband is a psychoanalyst. I think the husband's called John, and I think John and Bridget, they don't really talk that much, but they make out like they have a very quiet, busy, kind of studious intellectual life. And Helen is just worlds away from that. This did make quite a big departure for Gwendoline Riley from her earlier stuff. Gwendoline Riley's prose in her first novel, Cold Water, which she wrote when she was like 21, 22, and now she's like 41. So 20 years ago, her prose is quite descriptive, even though it was harsh, gritty realism and following narrators sounding out their lives. So that's what her novels follow. Since she came out with her 5th novel, reviewers keep describing her prose as razor sharp, which I don't really like that term because, you know, what prose makes you flinch? Oh my god, I flinch from the prose. No.
No.
Yeah, Wanda. Sorry.
So yeah, what does razor sharp mean? It tends to mean like loads of dialogue, maybe a lot of arguments, clear, crisp descriptions, and maybe quite sparse prose. So I would say those descriptions fit Gwendoline Riley, but this novel was so different than her earlier stuff because there was such a paucity of description. I think the most descriptive it ever gets was, you know, raindrops chased down the window. That was the most descriptive it ever got. Her previous novels, they did have lyrical elements to them, but this one is almost like anti-lyrical. Particularly with First Love, there was quite a lot of criticism about some of the descriptions. If you watch Jennifer from Insert Literary Pen here, she absolutely hated that novel. And there's a bit where she rips into one of the descriptions.
A reviewer praised Riley's, quote, shimmering and luminous prose. That is some high-quality crack you got there. Fuliginous nooks yielded uncertain streams of piss.
Fuliginous nooks yielded uncertain streams of piss.
Fuliginous nooks yielded uncertain streams of piss.
But I actually love that sentence because I understand psychological fiction, whereas maybe she doesn't. I'm joking, that's just me being shady. So yeah, in terms of psychological fiction, Bridget is narrating the story. She tries to seem really like removed from her life. She's narrating this quiet life she has with her husband, and the mum kind of brings all this chaos in. So the whole novel builds up to this climax where they have this, not dinner party, but kind of a soiree. Bridget, with a hectic childhood, she kind of doesn't want her mum to have anything to do with this new life. And then when Helen turns up, there's this precipice of the novel where you're wondering if there is any way for Helen to become part of Bridget's new life, because does she really fit into it? And then the ending was like so good. The ending was just ruthless and savage, and I loved it. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. It's not my favourite Gwendoline Riley, but in terms of Gwendoline Riley's style, it was honed so well. Each novel Gwendoline Riley comes out with, you just see this like developing sensibility, and her novels are such like a rare treat to read. So I adore Gwendoline Riley. If you haven't read her before, I would say maybe like read your way through her books chronologically. Because I first read Cold Water, and then I read First Love, her 5th book that came out with the Women's Prize, and I was really shocked at how different each novel reads, even though they all have similar frameworks. So they're all narrated by like white women, tend to be younger, from the north, had like a traumatic childhood, had single mother, horrible father. They all have that background, but they're also different in the themes and the allusions and the execution of it. So I'm really excited to see what she comes out with next. Were there things I didn't like? So I think the cover is okay. You know, it's quite a bold colour, but I do not like the actual front cover picture. It's of some Buddhist statue. To me, it doesn't really look like a front cover. It looks more like what you'd have on the back. So maybe in the paperback, they'll come out with that picture on the back and maybe a different one on the front. But to me, it just was odd because it's set in London, so this picture has absolutely nothing to do with where it's set or anything, and it tries to make it look a bit more maybe like a ghostly thriller that's maybe got some exotic, when really the novel's just like set in London. It's pretty bleak, so this is doing nothing for me. The only thing I can think of is that Bridget's grandmother went to Venezuela and she lived there for a little while. That's the only thing I can think of that has anything possibly to do with this picture. So I thought the cover is a little bit strange. But then again, it's quite hard to do covers for psychological fiction because it's normally about the person narrating it. So the covers tend to just look like, I don't know, mental health adverts. And that's the real truth. To me, my favourite cover has been Joshua Spassky, which I have a little picture of there. I love that picture. I think that cover just encapsulates the languor in that novel. Whereas this novel is not languorous at all. Like, this novel is cutthroat minimalism. And what else? Anything else I thought was strange? I thought it was a little bit strange that at the start, Also by Gwendoline Riley. The only novels they've listed is First Love, her previous novel, which she moved from Jonathan Cape to Granta with. But in the description at the back, it does say that she's the author of 6 novels. And I just think that's odd because somebody who's new to Gwendoline Riley, they might think she's only written 1 previous novel when she hasn't. So I thought that was a bit odd. But maybe that was something maybe Gwendoline Riley wanted. Maybe she wanted to do that pretentious author thing where they say, my previous work is dead to me. Don't mention that. But I can kind of understand that because First Love is set in London as well. Whereas before that, her previous 4 novels were all based in Manchester. So I do think that does work artistically, but I don't necessarily think they should have done that. Maybe in the paperback, that will show all her list of novels. But I do think that it is a stellar title. Ooh, if you turn to page 124, there's also a recipe for vegan vegetable curry, which I actually tried making and it was good.
Everything I'd hoped it would be. And more.
So thank you, Gwendoline.
Thank you, baby. Well, thank you, girl. Some folks be like, that bitch ain't real. Fuck you.
Have you read any Gwendoline Riley? And have you read this novel? If you have, what did you make of Gwendoline Riley stuff? And what did you make of this? Because, I mean, even though it's the same kind of genre she's been writing in, technically it's so different than her earlier stuff. No one in my life that I know really reads her. So maybe I need to get friends with better taste. But online, apparently she does have a cult following somewhere. And I've not really seen any other people who do read her. My next video is going to be my Gothtober wrap-up. So stay tuned for that. Bye.
The reason, yeah. She been messing with me cause I'm a whole guy. And I've been creeping with her for like the whole night. And niggas still be hating, but I don't know why. Keep my foot up on these necks just like a bow tie, yeah. She love how I'm coming out when I'm leaving. Get you under them covers, I'm undefeated. She been messing with me cause I'm a whole vibe. And I've been creeping with her for like the whole